Hello, my name's Mr. Salles, and as usual I'm going to give you another video showing you how to get the top grades. We're looking at argumentative writing. There are 5 things that I'm going to teach you in this video. How to structure a response to get really high marks. We'll explore the kinds of question you might get, especially if you're doing GCSEs, but also other exams across the world. How you will plan an answer, how you can use that plan to link your ideas together, and then finally, what else? What's the razzle-dazzle and the sparkle on top that will get you the top grades? There are then 5 key things to the structure. First will be the thesis and introduction. Don't worry if you don't yet know what a thesis is, you will find out in this video. That will be your first paragraph. Your second paragraph will be your argument, giving your opinion. The third paragraph will be a second argument backing that opinion up. Now, the fourth paragraph will actually disagree with your opinion. It will be the counter argument, and it's really important to pick genuine objections that are quite powerful. So you'll have to work really hard when you come to the fifth paragraph, your conclusion, to show why the counter argument isn't strong enough to ruin your opinion. So your final paragraph will of course be the conclusion, and it will refute the counter argument. Students always want to know how long the piece of writing has to be, so I've presented to you a minimum of 5 paragraphs. I will also show you in the video how to increase that if you've got the time in the exam. And then finally you want to know how many words it will be. There are really a minimum of 400 words, but because I'm doing everything in 5s, I'd really like you to get to 500 words. But you can get a pretty decent answer up to grade 7 perhaps in the UK with 400 words. Now you might get asked to write an argumentative essay at any level of your education, GCSE, A-level, university, and wherever you are in the world. This is a classic kind of argumentative task. Face masks should be compulsory in all schools. To what extent do you agree? Now, I've included a question with the word extent because that forces you to think about the counter argument. Now, a really good exam question will do that. It will guide you, the student, to think, oh, I need to write about the counter argument, then I'll be able to show the sophistication of my ideas. Things are less exciting if you're doing a GCSE question, but the good news is they're designed to be easier. So the first way that exams are easier in the UK is that you won't be asked to argue about something that you don't have facts and opinions for. And that's why I've chosen a topical thing like masks for coronavirus. Everybody has heard enough about this to have some sort of opinion. At GCSE, AQA for example, paper 2, question 5, there is a very particular wording. Face masks provide minimal protection. The disadvantages of wearing them at school far outweigh any potential benefits. So you'll be given a clear statement. Then you have to come up with a point of view on that statement, and you have to write in a particular style. This is what your exam paper might say. Write an article for a broadsheet newspaper in which you explain your point of view on this statement. You'll always be guided towards a more educated newspaper. So not a tabloid, but a broadsheet. You need to know what those are. You do not have to agree with the point of view that's given to you. You're going to have a balanced argument about it, just as I showed you in the structure. Now you will notice that there is no word extent in this question. You're not being asked to write a counter argument. However, including the counter argument will give your writing more sophistication, and that's what you want. So you're going to include the counter argument, even though the examiner hasn't asked for it. Okay, your next step is planning. And a plan needs to do 3 crucial things. Firstly, it needs to generate loads of ideas really quickly, especially if you're in an exam situation. Once you've done that, you need to be able to prioritize those ideas to work out which ones are going to be most persuasive and which ones you can ignore because they were no good, And then finally, you want to sequence them so that they will build that argument. They will have to fit into these 5 parts of the plan that we saw at the beginning. I encourage you to experiment with different forms of planning under timed conditions, and you'll find one that just fits the way your brain works. This video, I'm going to use a list, although when I'm writing on paper instead of typing, I use a spider diagram. There is some really important advice about starting your plan. You really need to ignore the voice in your head which says, no, that's a rubbish idea. In your planning, you can write down any idea, no matter how stupid it is, because writing a stupid idea will generate a better idea, will generate a new idea, and just writing at speed will give you loads of brilliant ideas by the end of your 3 to 5 minutes. Use any layout that you feel comfortable with, as I've just explained. So in my 3 minutes, I might type out these points for my plan. I don't know why I use the word might. This is what I did type out in my 3 minutes. Now, because I'm an adult, there aren't any stupid ideas in here, and I didn't want to fake that, but some are more powerful than others, and they'll link together in different ways. So that's what you need to do in your planning. You want to go through these and find which ones go together. How can you link them? The other advantage is once you've put all your ideas down, you then find out what your actual opinion is, because you might not have an opinion when you start writing. You might not be certain. Or like me, you might actually start off with one opinion and then realize when you get to the end, ooh, I need to change that opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. So I hate the idea of wearing a mask in school, but I'm actually, having done my list, going to argue that it's a good idea. I'm as surprised as you are. So let's reorganize the list so that it has 2 arguments and a counter argument. Here is my main argument. You can have a read through these just to see what I've linked together. The important thing to realize is these 4 bullet points in my mind are thematically linked. They go together easily and they'll fit together well in a paragraph. Then I found another 4 bullet points which I think also go together well as a group, and they will be my second main argument and will go together again as a paragraph. Now I come to my counter argument point, and I've gone for a strong one. You can see that because I have 5 bullet points in it. And that's really useful to me because it tells the examiner I've really considered the flaws in my argument, and hopefully in my conclusion I'll be able to overcome them. If I find I have a bullet point not allocated to one of my 3 paragraphs, great news, I will fit it into my conclusion. I know I'll need more when I get there, but I'm not worried about that because I have every confidence that once I've written the whole essay, I'll know exactly what to put in my conclusion, and I'll show you why that will also work for you in a minute. Let's take a step back to that thesis statement, which I said I would explain for you. So your thesis statement needs to summarize your 3 main ideas. Remember, those were the 2 main arguments and your counter argument. And I'm going to suggest that your thesis should actually start with the counter argument. Let's see what that might look like in an example. Learning is a social experience requiring complex communication between teacher and student and between students themselves. So this is going to be an argument for not wearing the mask. Although mask wearing will reduce the effectiveness of teaching, the benefits are more important. So now come my arguments for wearing a mask. Lives will clearly be saved, and students' long-term education will also be improved. Now, these arguments that I'm putting here in my thesis statement are going to be fully explained in my conclusion. And as you'll see when I get to the conclusion, the long-term, the future, is what's going to make my conclusion sing out loud and clear that I deserve top grades. If I lay out my thesis this way, you can see that it is structured into 3 parts. It begins with the counter-argument, then it has the argument, my actual opinion, and then it has ideas that I'm going to put in my conclusion. Now, why this is so valuable to me is that it helps the examiner know what I'm going to argue, but crucially, I've already primed the examiner to expect a coherent argument and a top answer. Well, most students know how to write paragraphs where they just put in their opinion, but the crucial game changer in terms of grades is writing a great conclusion. What should a conclusion do? Most students think that you just have to summarise what you've already put in the essay so far. Well, that's pointless. I've read the essay so far, I already know what's in it. Don't bother summarising it for the examiner. But you are going to pose a question of the reader, and you are going to look to the future. Those two skills are going to raise the level of your conclusion to high grades. Let's take a look at a sample conclusion to that question. As I've shown you, I want to include a question in my conclusion. I don't have to start with that question, but it's easier if I do. And I also need to consider the future, which will be this bit in bold down here. Let's have a quick read. How likely is a second wave of infection in your town? We all know how damaging closing schools has been and how desperately we need to strive to keep them open. So our behaviour routines in school should include hand washing with soap, not sanitizer. We should encourage teachers and students to wear eye protection too. But it is also tragically clear from repeated research that reduced literacy and numeracy and reduced years spent in education lead to lower income, poorer health and earlier death. Closing schools will actually kill people. Children will actually die at a younger age than their parents, unless we say, not on our watch. It starts with something as simple as a cotton mask. It is worth pointing out two things here. You are used to using lots of rhetorical devices or persuasive techniques in your writing, and I've included a lot of them in these two paragraphs. I'm not going to explain them at this stage because you already know to bring that to your argumentative writing. You probably also noticed my one-sentence paragraph for impact, which will take me beyond 5 paragraphs. Join me in the next video where I take you through a top grade aspect of structure where you can deal with the counter argument first and introduce an anecdote to make your writing exactly like you see in the top broadsheet newspapers. Or check out the next video, which has been chosen for you by the YouTube algorithm. YouTube is cool.